Good morning, colleagues. This is meeting number 5 of the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. It's Thursday, March 10th, 2016. Today we're studying Chapter 4 of the Fall 2015 report of the Auditor General of Canada entitled Information Technology Shared Services. We're very pleased to have a number of witnesses appearing for us here today. From the Office of the Auditor General of Canada, we have Mr. Michael Ferguson, our Auditor General of Canada. Welcome. And Martin Dompierre, the Principal. From Shared Services Canada, we have Ron Parker, the President, and John Glowacki, Jr., Chief Operating Officer, and Manon Filion, Director General and Deputy Chief Financial Officer, Corporate Services. And from the Treasury Board Secretariat, we have John Messina, Chief Information Officer, and Ms. Jennifer Dawson, our Deputy Chief Information Officer. So we have 3 opening statements, and we'll start with our Auditor General. Thanks again and welcome.
Thank you. Monsieur le Président, je vous remercie.
Mr. Chair, thank you for this opportunity to discuss our Fall 2015 report on Information Technology Shared Services. Joining me at the table is Martin Dompierre, the Principal who is responsible for the audit. This audit examined whether Shared Services Canada had made progress in implementing key elements of its transformation plan and maintained the operations of existing services. Specifically, the audit focused on Shared Services Canada's objectives of improving services, enhancing IT security, and generating savings. We also looked at how the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat assisted and provided governance and leadership on the strategic vision for Shared Services Canada, and how it fits into the government IT landscape. As part of the audit, we consulted 7 federal government departments and agencies to get an understanding of how they viewed their collaboration with Shared Services Canada.
On aging information technology systems indicated that the federal government infrastructure was aging and at risk of breaking down. In turn, this could affect the government's ability to deliver some essential services to Canadians. The report recommended that a plan be developed for the government as a whole to mitigate risks associated with aging IT systems on a sustainable basis. In August 2011, the government announced the creation of Shared Services Canada as a new department to manage and transform the IT infrastructure of 43 individual departments, including servers, data centers, human resources, and IT budgets. The IT infrastructure included 485 data centers, 50 networks, and about 23,400 servers. In 2013, Shared Services Canada developed a 7-year transformation plan to consolidate, standardize, and modernize the Government of Canada email, data centers, and network services. Shared Services Canada committed to maintain and improve the level of IT services and security during the transformation. Dans l'ensemble, nous avons
Overall, we found that there were weaknesses in Shared Services Canada's implementation of government IT shared services to date, specifically in managing service expectations with its partners and in measuring and tracking progress on transformation initiatives and savings. For example, we found that Shared Services Canada did not set clear and concrete expectations with its partner departments in providing IT infrastructure service to support their services and applications. As a result, it could not show if and how it was maintaining or improving services. This finding is important because Shared Services Canada needs to understand whether its services are meeting its partners' needs. As the recipients of these services, Shared Services Canada's partner departments need to have confidence that the levels of IT service they receive from Shared Services Canada adequately support their ability to deliver services to Canadians.
In addition, we found that Shared Services Canada rarely established expectations or provided sufficient information to partners on core elements of security. This is important because Shared Services Canada plays an important role in implementing Government of Canada security policies, directives, standards and guidelines to ensure the security of government IT shared services. As the government's IT infrastructure service provider, it's important that the department collaborate with partners to manage security threats, risks and incidents to help protect the government's critical IT-related assets, information and services. Finally, we found that Shared Services Canada did not have consistent financial practices to accurately demonstrate that it was generating savings. For example, there was no standard costing methodology in place to determine savings, and there were incomplete baselines to measure total savings generated. This finding matters because Shared Services Canada spends about $1.9 billion each year to deliver IT services to partners, invest in projects, and fund its operations. As this audit is a mid-transition review of the Department's progress in implementing key elements of the government's IT transformation, our recommendations provide concrete opportunities to look at what has been done so far and to identify needed adjustments. Our report makes 8 recommendations to Shared Services Canada and 1 to the Treasury Board of Canada Secretariat. Both entities have agreed with our recommendations. Monsieur le Président, je termine ainsi.
Mr. Chair, this concludes my opening remarks. We would be pleased to answer any questions the committee may have. Thank you.
And we'll move on to our next witness now, Mr. Parker. Welcome. Good to have you here today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bonjour, je m'appelle Ron Parker.
Good morning. My name is Ron Parker. I was appointed President of Shared Services Canada in July 2015. I am accompanied today by my colleagues Chief Operating Officer John Glowacki and Manon Fillon, Director General of Finance. We are here to discuss the Auditor General's report that was tabled in Parliament on February 2nd. Furthermore, we would be happy to hear your comments and to answer your questions. But first, I would like to briefly outline SSC's history and mandate. Shared Services Canada was created to modernize information technology infrastructure services to ensure a secure and reliable platform for the delivery of digital services to Canadians.
And noted the Auditor General's report of 2010 that drew attention to the aging systems of the Government of Canada and the risk that those systems were of breaking down and jeopardizing the services to Canadians. Shared Services was created to standardize, consolidate, and re-engineer the federal IT infrastructure into a single shared IT enterprise. The department aims to deliver one email system, consolidated data centers, reliable and secure telecommunications network, 24/7, 365 protection against cyber threats across the 43 departments, 50 siloed networks, 400 or so data centers, and 23,000 servers. This year, the Auditor General has noted limited progress in the key elements of Shared Services Canada's transformation program. This report recommends that the department develop a strategy to meet partner legacy and transformation service needs, develop agreements with partners setting out service expectations and reporting commitments, provide partners with more information on IT security and protocols, guidelines, and standards, prioritize, allocate, and report on funding commitments and realize savings. Services Partagés Canada accepts ces conclusions.
Shared Services Canada accepts these findings. They are timely, and they echo the feedback that I have received from partners, stakeholders, and staff. In fact, The department has made tangible progress on each of these recommendations. That said, some aspects of the Auditor General's report do deserve comment.
Service management strategy has already been finalized and shared with our partners. We have established service level expectations in 5 priority areas: email, mobile devices, video conferencing, application hosting, and the Government of Canada wide area network services. Service level expectations cover such areas as service hours, service availability, and the time to restore services. Regarding the email transformation initiative, the challenges in migrating email systems vary by department. Readiness to migrate also varies by department. As such, the costs of migration differ by department and additional costs may be incurred. Migrations were also put on hold on in November 2015 while the vendor addresses system stability and capacity issues. Finally, regarding security, as noted in the Auditor General's report, it's important to remark that the Auditor General did not test the effectiveness of our security controls. Rather, as he's just said, he's focused on the communications with partners and whether security roles and responsibilities were adequately documented. Le plan de transformation.
Shared Services Canada's transformation plan represents an unprecedented exercise in orchestration and synchronization. As we move forward, we are placing increased emphasis on client service, sound financial management, and ensuring accountability. We also face some challenges.
Is proceeding more slowly than anticipated. The complexity of the challenges has caused some delays, and some procurements are taking longer than planned. In addition, the capacity of industry to meet our requirements varies, and we've got important funding pressures that are arising, in part from stronger than forecast demand growth. To address these issues, we are focusing on a 3-pronged approach. First, our staff are our priority. They are our strongest asset. Their support, commitment, and drive are a very precious commodity like gold. I want to recognize their Herculean work to remake the delivery of IT infrastructure services supporting all types of services to Canadians. They should be very proud. At Shared Services Canada, service excellence is part of the DNA of our staff, and we must make it easier for people to deliver the services through providing new tools, new processes. This, of course, is a major concern for our customers as well. Improving customer satisfaction is key to Shared Services success and key at the same time to improving staff morale. We will strengthen service delivery through new service strategies and the standardization of processes. Second, the department will update the transformation plan in the fall of 2016 with the participation of Shared Services Canada's employees, customer organizations, central agencies, and outside experts. We want a conversation about the scope, pace of implementation initiatives, and the cost of the plan, while ensuring that the legacy systems continue to deliver programs and services to Canadians. And third, we recognize some legacy infrastructure will remain operational longer than we'd originally anticipated. We will therefore continue to reinforce the legacy infrastructure to prevent outages in the delivery of services to Canadians. In conclusion, I want to stress that since its creation, Shared Services Canada has made progress in modernizing government-wide IT systems. Nous poursuivions notre travail.
We are moving forward with renewed vigor while absorbing the lessons learned over the last 4 years, along with the recommendations from ongoing audit and evaluation work.
En fin de compte,
ultimately, the IT services that Shared Services Canada provides are an integral part of a vision of a 21st century public service. They complement the Government of Canada's commitment to improve digital services to all Canadians. Thank you very much.
Very much, Mr. Parker. And we'll now move to Mr. Messina from the Treasury Board, please. Yep, go ahead.
Thanks. Point of order in two parts. One, is there any particular reason why we don't have copies of the opening remarks of this witness? And secondly, it's my understanding that the translators have a copy of the remarks, but not us.
Is that true? I guess this is his speaking notes, and so typically there are occasions where people will come in and just speak as a witness, and it was not circulated because it wasn't meant to be circulated. So.
Well, wait, I'm sorry. It wasn't meant to be circulated?
Well, he's going to give us this is a grid line of what he's going to say, and he gave a transcript, I guess, to the translator.
Yeah, well, that's my problem, is if there's a transcript in existence of what's being presented, why didn't we get it?
I'm told that it does not have to be, the speaking notes do not have to be.
No, I didn't say
circulated.
they had to be. I was inquiring, though, why we didn't get them. Because it doesn't look good. There's a copy that's available. It was given to the translators, but not the committee. And this is not just a pedestrian witness who doesn't understand how things work. This is Treasury Board. So I got to tell you, my antenna is up. Why don't I have a copy in front of me when it seems to be available? That's all. Not a big deal. I just want to know where it is.
Mr. Poilievre, on the same point of order.
On the same point, I wonder if one solution might be if the witness would be prepared to share the transcripts of his remarks with us verbally right now.
I think that was his intent.
Okay, let's do it that
That's
way.
always been his intent. So I don't find it as a point of order because although it's an inconvenience, certainly I have attended many different committee meetings where the transcript of the speaking notes were not provided. So I guess that's the reason. Go ahead, Mr. Messina, and welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm pleased to be here to speak about the role of the Chief Information Officer branch in providing governance and strategic leadership for the transformation of government IT services. Je suis accompagné aujourd'hui de Madame.
With me today is Jennifer Dawson, Deputy Chief Information Officer, who will help me respond to any questions. The role of the Chief Information Officer branch in the Treasury Board Secretariat is to provide strategic leadership and policy direction for information technology, information management, and cybersecurity.
Departmental deputy heads and input from chief information officers, as well as other stakeholders. The Auditor General, during his review of the information technology shared services, said it is important that SSC have more support in the form of strategic guidance from TBS to help it achieve its mandate. Il a recommandé que la direction.
He recommended that the Treasury Board Secretariat Chief Information Officer branch put into effect an IT strategic plan for the Government of Canada. Mr. Chair, we agree with the recommendation, and we have committed to completing an IT strategic plan. And we will do so by March 31st of this year.
With implementing the plan. Accordingly, we have fully reviewed business and technology trends as well as industry best practices to determine what changes are needed as a result of advances in information technology, the experience of other jurisdictions, and recent operational developments within the Government of Canada. Dans le cadre de notre examen,
as part of our review, the Chief Information Officer branch has consulted broadly with the government's IT community to understand their service and technology needs.
With our internal policy centres to ensure the IT strategic plan meets Canadians' expectations for the security of information. Our consultations are now complete, and we are on our way to having the strategic plan completed by the end of the month. Following this, TBS will ensure approval of the plan. Ce plan
This plan will provide a strategic vision for IT in the Government of Canada. It will give Shared Services Canada and other departments direction and priorities for enhancing IT management, security, and service delivery. It will also help the broader government IT community as they develop and coordinate their own plans and activities.
Going forward, TBS will help departments and agencies implement the strategic plan by providing communications, guidance, and oversight. Mr. Chair, as you can see, much work has been done to address the Auditor General's recommendations, and we will continue to work with Shared Services Canada to provide governance and strategic leadership to help it achieve its mandate. Thank you for your time today, and I would be pleased to answer any questions from the committee.
All right, thank you very much all for your testimony and for your statements, opening statements. And we'll move into the first round of questions, the 7-minute round. Ms. Mendez.
Monsieur le Président, merci à vous.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you all for your presentations. I certainly appreciate the time that you took to prepare yourselves for this meeting. Now, I'm sure you can imagine that this is a subject that particularly concerns us because it deals with the government as a whole. I'd like to direct my first question to Mr. Messina. You were the last person to speak, but I will be asking you my first question. The Auditor General's Office recommended that you complete your strategic plan by March 31st of this year. So first of all, will this plan be approved before March 31st or simply submitted by March 31st?
The written format by March 31st. After that, we will be seeking approval for it after March 31st.
Who approves it, if I may ask?
The Secretary of the Treasury Board will be approving the plan.
Merci.
Thank you. Now, as a committee, it's our duty to follow up and to see how you carry out this plan. Can you give us an idea of how this plan will help Shared Services Canada to set priorities for its partner departments?
Set priorities because, first of all, it'll establish and list what the priorities are. Just for example, the priorities are enterprise systems that we want to develop for the Government of Canada. So having said that and articulated that in the plan, there's an example of where going forward we have governance committees that will ensure that the priorities are being met and worked on by Shared Services Canada. So it's in that context that it'll help Shared Services Canada.
Thank you. If I may, Mr. Chair, I'll share now with Mr. Chandra for the rest of my time.
Thank you. You know, this, as an MP from Ottawa, Nepean in Ottawa, and you know, I know a bit about shared services because I keep hearing it from my constituents. Some of them are the union leaders, some of them are employees, some of them are contractors, and trust me, this is the single most disaster, at least as far as they are concerned. I know you are new, and one of the understatements you made is that you said the complexity of the challenges that cause some delays, some procurements are taking longer than planned. The capacity of the industry to meet our requirement varies. We have important funding pressures arising. This is after 4 years or 5 years of being under implementation. And now in 2016, you want to have conversation about the scope, the pace of implementation, the transformation initiative, and the cost of the plan. And now, Mr. Messina, you say that you got a strategic plan will be ready by the end of March. Was there not a strategic plan before Shared Service Canada was established?
There was no official version of the strategic plan in place. There was a draft version that had been circulated, and it was around in 2013. But there was the strategic plan was not in place before.
Invested billions of dollars. How many billions we have spent till now?
Sorry, pardon me?
How many billions of dollars we have spent till now? We went and implemented Shared Service Canada without a strategic plan.
I can just answer that in general. This Shared Service Canada budget was about $2 billion per year, and the government spends about $5 billion in IT every year. But I don't know exactly how much was spent in terms of the context of your question.
It appears, from my conversation with my constituents, it appears as though that the Auditors General submitted the report in 2010 and 2011. Somebody saw a folder lying somewhere. They said, oh, yeah, this is a good idea. It gives a good media coverage. Let's go ahead and implement it with or without a strategic plan. I know, Mr. Parker, you came in new here, but the things, what I hear is still bad. I was told one of the guys who was recently recruited was recruited without an interview, just based on his resume. And he walks in there and there's nobody to tell him what is expected of him.
Well, I think in terms of the priorities for Shared Services Canada were laid out at the outset to bring 63 email systems down to one, to bring 50 networks down to one consolidated network, and to rationalize the data centers across Canada. So the mission has been clear and
no, Mr. Parker,
focused.
I understand the priorities. That's a very simple, eye-catching thing. Oh, let's consolidate everything. But the implementation went ahead without a plan.
Well, Shared Services was stood up in 2011. Initially, it took until about the fall of 2013 to develop the plan. And since that time, the focus has been on the implementation of the plan. And that's the context for the Auditor General's review as well. Effectively, it was in the second year of a 7-year plan at the outset. And that's why it's beneficial to have the Auditor General's observations at this juncture. We've got time to course correct, take those comments on board, and make the improvements that are necessary to achieve the mission of shared services. It's a complex task. It's a difficult task.
Understand.
We understand that.
Absolutely understand it's a complex task. That's the good reason why this should have been considered before we went ahead and started spending money in this. Now, I don't know, will it make sense to shut down everything and restart the whole process again?
Personally, I don't think that would be a very good plan. We have the opportunity at this juncture to take stock. We take stock regularly and to make course of corrections. As I said, we're going to listen to a lot of people. We're looking at the assumptions underlying the original plan, checking them against the reality, and incorporating those revisions into a plan. We'll be bringing that out in the fall of this year and subjecting it to public scrutiny and discussion. And I think that's the way you build a robust plan.
Thank you very much. Let's make sure as a committee here that we have our cell phones off, and also we try to direct our questions through the chair, and then likewise on the answers. Mr. Polyev, please, you have 7 minutes.
Yes, in paragraph 4.26, the Auditor General found that a service catalog is a central source of information about IT services delivered by a service provider, including pricing. Can Mr. Parker explain how pricing is determined and who pays the price for a given service provided to a client within the system.
Absolutely. I'll make a few remarks and then ask Madame Fillon to explain the methodology that's being put in place. The service methodology or the pricing methodology is going to be based fundamentally off of what was the core level of service provided at the time that shared services was stood up with the base appropriation that shared services received. Beyond that, we're looking for pricing to be based on new incremental type services, growth in demand, those types of variables. So,
no, sorry, I think you're missing my question. So,
okay.
Let's say that shared services provides networking services A, B, C to client number one. Does client number one actually pay for those services, or does it come out of the allocation to Shared Service Canada?
Well, Mr. Chair, the answer is that client X received, if client X received A, B, C at the time shared services was stood up, then client X continues to receive A, B, C out of our appropriation.
Out of your appropriation. So then
Yes.
it no longer comes out of the appropriation of the department. Because prior to shared services, it was originally, every department went out and did its own IT. So now the cost is transferred to a central budget, presumably that passed in the estimates allocated to Treasury Board Secretariat, correct?
Mr. Chair, the initial appropriation for Shared Services Canada.
I'm talking about the ongoing.
The ongoing appropriation is approved every year.
I understand that, but it's an appropriation centrally to shared services. It's not paid for by the customer doesn't pay for a service in a normal customer service provider relationship.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the appropriation that we receive annually pays for the core services that the clients were receiving when shared services was stood up, and they made a one-time transfer, the clients made a one-time transfer that effectively created the appropriation that Shared Services Canada receives.
Okay, and that one-time transfer was in addition to costs that the customer had to pay for the transformation as well. Is that so? The reason I ask is that it says in the report that the costs associated with the transformation, the costs borne by the customer, were not figured into the calculation of savings that Shared Services Plan foresaw.
Mr. Chair, the transformation costs, take for example the email transformation, a client that is moving from their old email system to a new email system. The client will incur transition costs to train their staff in the new methodology, possibly need to acquire some licenses for their staff. It was a mixed bag in terms of the costs that were included. For example, we did estimate the licensing costs, but all of the other costs that you get from a change management perspective were not included in the original base case estimates of client transition costs.
Have they since been calculated?
They have not been since calculated, okay. Mr. Chair.
Will they be for future transactions?
Mr. Chair, we're planning for the rollout of the new initiatives to ask the clients for their estimated transition costs.
Okay. So, in your remarks, you said the department aims to deliver one email system and that right now we have, according to the report, only a small minority of email inboxes have been transitioned into that central system. What percentage is it of today, as of today?
Mr. Chair, I don't have the exact percent. It'd be about 10%. There's about 52,000 mailboxes that have been transferred.
And 52, sorry, how many have been transferred? 52,000 of 500,000. So that must include every and all of government, because
well,
500,000 people must include military personnel and everyone, because that is the...
Mr. Chair, yes, the entire public service is included, but it's also important to note there are many mailboxes that are not necessarily associated with individuals. For example, replying to consultation exercises. Those types of mailboxes are quite
But it's
common.
basically every single email, work-based email of every single person employed by the Government of Canada. Your goal is, and when will they all be consolidated into one system?
Mr. Chair, as I said, the vendor had to suspend the migrations in November 2015. They've developed a plan to stabilize the system.
Do you have a date when you expect to have the migration done?
We do not have a date yet because
will that be in the plan that you're releasing at the end of March?
The plan will be finalized in the fall, Mr. Chair. So that's about the time that we'll know. We will communicate the revised migration plan when we have it from the vendor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parker. We'll move to Mr. Christofferson, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, there's a highly technical term used when something is this complex, involving this many billions of dollars, and has this much ineptitude and inaction, and that highly technical term is a boondoggle, and that's exactly what we've got here. And I'm not satisfied at all that this department has a handle on this, and I think the proof of that's in front of us. I want to follow up on where some of my colleagues have been on this business of the draft plan going to be complete, is the word in the action plan, by March 31st, 2016. Doesn't say, and then it goes on to say that it has to be approved. Well, it seems to me that March 6, 2016 draft has no more status than the June 2013 draft, simply because it wasn't approved. And let's remember, this is 3 years they've had the draft plan. The best they can come up with as a resolve is a year ago they said they would update the draft plan from what was then 2 years before, and we still don't have a final date. What we have is a game. We have a shell game telling us March 31st, 2016 is looking like it's some kind of deadline where we can start expecting action, and all that is the completed draft, which has no more status than the June 2013 draft, which didn't get acted on either. Then I hear that sometime this fall there's going to be approval. Not good enough. Not good enough. Want a date. When will this be approved and when will it be implemented? No more of this draft stuff. That's just dodging. When is this report going to be adopted and when will it be implemented?
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question of clarification? It's not clear to me if the member is inquiring about the strategic plan that Treasury Board has been asked for the IT strategy overall, or some other element, some other deliverable?
No, it's the draft. It's the plan. March 2016.
The strategic
yes.
plan?
Yes. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, so okay. Mr. Messina.
Yeah, so maybe just to clarify why Ron was asking the question, the strategic IT plan has some enterprise initiatives, and is because it's strategic, it is a directional plan for departments. Then there are specific plans that are very operational that every department would have, and Ron has those for Shared Services Canada. So we have the IT strategic plan. We've done a lot of consultation with the community, with CIOs across government, and the completion of that document is March 31st. We expect at the latest to have that approved and out to departments for implementation in the spring timeframe. June timeframe is what we're looking at.
June this year, this June.
Yes, June 2016, correct.
Good. Okay. Well, you can expect that we'll be incorporating that in our report and looking for some detailed follow-up. I want to go back to Mr. Parker's opening remarks, and in there he said, and I quote, "Shared Services Canada was created to modernize information technology infrastructure services to ensure a secure." The first word that Mr. Parker used was the word secure. So the services were there to ensure, and I continue the quote, "a secure and reliable platform for the delivery of digital services to Canadians." The Auditor General said, even this morning, that in addition, we found that Shared Services Canada rarely established expectations or provided sufficient information to partners on core elements of security. This is important because Shared Services Canada plays an important role in implementing Government of Canada's security policies, directives, and standards. So my question to Mr. Parker is, why did given that if ever there was a buzzword of this era, it's security, and it was used as the first word. So why the deficiency? Why does the Auditor General find out that you weren't in touch and providing sufficient information on the core elements of security? And then my second question is over to Treasury Board, who are the ones that are supposed to make sure that they do it. Why did they fail in their job in making sure they didn't do it in the first place?
To begin by remarking that indeed the IT infrastructure services that Shared Services provide are secure. We have made important progress in securing the IT infrastructure, the perimeter of the IT infrastructure. As I mentioned in my speaking notes, a 24/7, 365 Security Operations Center has been established, providing an overall perspective on the threats to the Government of Canada IT infrastructure, and we monitor incredibly closely the potential threats that the infrastructure services, along with our security agency partners. So while there's never any guarantee, there's no immunity against cyber threats, we are very vigilant and have made investments over the last number of years to increase the security of our IT infrastructure. In terms of information provided to partners, we agreed with the Auditor General's recommendation that there needs to be better communication, and we are taking firm steps already to clarify the roles, the responsibilities. Those documents have been circulated to our partners, and we're engaging in further actions to improve communications.
Thank you very
Am I
much.
out of time?
Yeah, you have 10 seconds, but...
I can do a lot with 10 seconds here.
We'll go back to Mr. Zahid. I'll put it on to your next round. Ms. Zahid.
Thank you, Chair. My first question is for Mr. Parker. I was very surprised to learn that no firm service level agreements were included as part of your relationship with partner departments, just not specific business agreements. Like, I'm really surprised. Like, no private sector company would sign a contract with an IT service provider without firm service level agreements. So, if you have some comments on that.
Absolutely. When Shared Services Canada was stood up, it inherited a vast array of different types, different qualities of IT services infrastructure. In most cases, there were no existing service level agreements that came with that IT infrastructure. So it's been a big job just to figure out what is the IT infrastructure that was inherited, what's the map to it, and we're well on the way to completing that, and it's necessary in order to consolidate the networks, the data centers, for example. We are going to be establishing service level expectations for our clients. You can see in the report on plans and priorities for 16-17 that we are shifting to a truly business model for Shared Services Canada. We are setting targets. For example, around the reliability and stability of the desktop functions, the percent of time that email systems are available, the number of applications migrated, the time that the mission-critical systems are available, the mean time to restore those systems. So all of those indicators are being developed, and it's our intent to hold ourselves to account to those targets that we will set for our clients. We're also intent on measuring customer satisfaction. The Auditor General mentioned this, and that's an important feedback mechanism as well for us to understand how we're doing. And we've done the first survey, got the results, and that's a baseline for us to grow the organization in terms of its maturity.
But will there be some penalties? Because without penalty or consequence for failure, service level agreements are meaningless. So will you build a penalty or some consequence for failing to achieve the service level agreements into your new program? And what could that penalty be?
All right. I'm going to ask Mr. Kulaki to take that question on.
All right, thank you. First of all, I have to say it's a privilege to be here. Mr. Chair, this is quite typical in this industry, this managed service provider industry, that when you go into an engagement such as this, you take on the existing status. And the agreements are quite standard to come in and say, the phrase is your mess for less, but basically you run it at the same status. If there were pre-existing measurements, you take on those measurements and you agree to run it at the same status. What we had here in many cases, there were not sufficient systems in place doing the operational metrics that we could take on and say, okay, now we have a baseline, we will continue to measure against that baseline. So absent that baseline, it becomes a best effort kind of engagement. To your question about service credits, if you will, we intend to, this sort of goes back to some of the previous questions about how things are paid for. We are trying to migrate from what we were created as, because some base had to be established with the appropriations, but as we move forward, we're going into what we call a fee-for-service environment. And so as demand goes up, additional services are always added. That's just the law of nature. We will have agreements in place that say, here's the level we will provide, here's the availabilities, reliabilities, et cetera. Because we're all in the government, it is not typical to say we're going to provide some sort of service credit if we miss the mark. Now, the caveat to that is we inherited a hybrid environment where we do go to industry for a certain amount of our services. It's predictable we will continue to do some services ourselves. Some it will make perfect business sense to have industry doing those. The benefit we get with industry is we ensure we have service credits through them. So the email example, for instance, we do have service credits, and those are piling up, and we have a very careful count of those. And as we unfold the operation, we will apply those as necessary.
I would like to ask a question.
Thank you, and thank you for being here to help us understand the situation with IT services. So my background's from British Columbia, and when the British Columbia government tackled shared services back in 2003-4, it was broken into chunks. So I'm trying to understand the methodology that shared services use to to deliver on this very ambitious 7-year program. In British Columbia, for example, desktop management was taken as a discrete project, and it took probably about 2 years to fix that. Then there was network services as a separate project. The mission-critical legacy systems and servers were not touched during that period, so that the departments continued to provide the service. And so that breaking it into very distinct chunks seemed like each of them was manageable, and this was a very successful program. So I am not clear from the materials we have whether shared services was given the mandate to just do all of this, and so it was a big integrated project that then, you know, it would be easy to flounder in. We know from corporate transformation projects as well as government. Or did you have a methodological kind of step-by-step approach where you tackled one piece, succeeded with that, tackled another piece?
Very quickly.
Mr. Chair, the transformation is one program with separate components. There's an email component, there's a data center component, and a networks component. We were working in parallel on all of those components, and I think it's very essential to do that as well, because there are many interdependencies between all of these. The networks are essential to email, they're essential to data centers, and modernizing them along the way is crucial to the success, in fact, of the data center project as well. So we have a set of projects, separate projects for email, the data centers, and the network. Their interdependencies are identified, have been identified, and we're working to manage those projects so that they intersect at the right time, at the right place, to enable one another.
Thank you very much, Mr. Parker. We're going to move into the second round. Mr. Gaudin, vous avez 5 minutes.
Merci.
You have 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, the witnesses, I'd like to thank you for being here. Now, we have a responsibility to maximize public information. Now, I know that in a sense, the project that you're working on is a very big ship, and it can be difficult to direct. So there are it's a long process, but I'm a little bit concerned about what I've heard this morning. I'm a little bit concerned about where we're going to be directing this ship, so to speak. I have basically an existential question about it. Have we adopted the right methodology to get where we want to get? Ms. Murray mentioned that in BC, there was a similar migration, a similar modernization process, which was conducted phase by phase, category by category, and sector by sector. So I want to ask you, are we currently using the right method to modernize our systems? I don't want to speculate, looking back, whether we proceeded in the right way or not. What I want to focus on is where we are now. As I said, I think it's essential that all of these projects happen simultaneously, because each project has important aspects that help facilitate the other projects. So I think that we've started down this path, and we need to continue in the same way, on the same path. As I said, if other experts come forward with different opinions who can demonstrate a better way of doing things, then we will take their ideas into consideration.
Thank you. What I would offer, Mr. Chair, is what we are doing is actually quite typical from the industry. There are dozens, if not hundreds of cases of going down this road, maybe not quite as big, but certainly going through this same process. And the methodology often is very similar. Take the infrastructure, because as Ron alluded, it is interconnected and there are many interdependencies. You need to take these together. Taking them in isolation can cause problems. But going this route is actually quite typical in the managed service provider industry.
En fait, je vous dirais que
Well, I think that as the Government of Canada, we shouldn't be following what's being done by others. We should be leaders. Now, I'm not questioning what's been done so far, but I think that we need to be responsible. And if we aren't on the right path, we should change direction and make new decisions now. Because currently, if we look at the systems, we need to look at how much time we need to bring this whole project up to date. So if you look at where we are now, if you have a snapshot of the current situation, we know that IT systems are constantly evolving. And of course, it's easy with hindsight to say, well, we can change things so that things will be better in the future. But if we look at the way the system is today, I want to know how much time will it take to update everything given the current state of technology. Now, after that, if there are additional expenses, we can see if the government is interested in investing in those.
le Président, nous allons...
Mr. Chair, we can't do that calculation right now. But I would mention that we are open to experts' opinions. That's part of the process, and that's part of what we're doing to update the plan. We completely agree that IT is evolving very quickly. And there's also a huge increase in demand for technology. We are going to take all of these developments into account, and I think that it's important that we have a methodology that evolves as technology evolves.
Move back to Mr. Lefebvre, please, for 5 minutes.
Merci d'être ici ce matin.
Thank you for being here this morning. I hope that you can see how important this issue is for us. In fact, you're the first group that we have officially asked to appear before the committee. We looked at the report and we met and we decided that this was the report that we wanted to discuss first. So I think that demonstrates the importance that we're giving to this. And you've also heard comments from other people to that effect. You said that in the fall of 2016, the transformation plan will be tabled again. Now, can you tell us how that plan will be different to the plan that existed before, or the draft plan that existed before? So can we look back, first of all, and then talk a little bit about what's going to happen in the future, and talk about how the upcoming plan will be different from the past one? Well, we're going to look at our experience over the past 4 years, the difficulties that we encountered, the specific requests that we've had, and the challenges that we've had in implementing projects, interdependencies between projects, and the way we manage sellers. So we're going to look at all of the experiences that we've had in the last 4 years. So we've looked at all of the hypotheses about the past plan, and we are trying to adjust to the current situation. Now, what will this lead to? We don't know. This is a work in progress. Things are not completed yet, so it's difficult for me to say that, to say exactly what will happen. I can tell you that the plan will be very different from the past plan. But we will certainly be discussing this in the fall.
Une question. On parle de...
Now, we're talking about SIRS baseline. Will the plan take into account the Auditor General's report? Because we have to know where we're starting from, and the report said that that was not the case at SIRS baseline. Now, will the plan take that into account? Absolutely. We're going to be setting targets, service targets. What's difficult is looking back all the way back to 2008, 2009. But you have to start somewhere, 2010, 2011. Yes, so for service targets, we will be looking at that. We have recently published the first estimates for service levels. And we will be adjusting those measurements over time, depending on what we learn. Do I have time for another question, Mr. Chair? Now, concerning funding, your budget, this wasn't really clear to me. The AG mentioned the figure of 1.9 billion, or approximately 2 billion overall. Now, in terms of expenses, in terms of inventory, can you tell us a little bit more about the specifics? Because we want to be able to look at all of these services. If you don't know exactly where the money is going for, how can you understand the budget? That's something that really concerns me. Of course, sound financial management is very important. And actually, I think I'll ask Ms. Fillon to explain a little bit more about the checks that exist, or the verifications that exist of our budget. About the, yes, so we're going to be talking about the financial check program. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here to answer questions. So we have a budget of around $2 billion. That is essentially the budget that has existed since our creation in 2011-12. The funding structure involves votes. So we've had 15 to 16 billion since 1.5 to 1.6 billion rather since our creation. Now we have partners and we have clients, which represents another approximately 410 million. Now, I want to reassure you that the organization is well managed. Since we were created, our challenge has really been to maintain the level of service that existed before. Before, the service was very diversified, and even the internal services that were offered to partners. Now, what we've done that allows us to better manage the department is that we've established 25 services that are offered to clients, and clients can purchase those services. For each service, we try to set up a standard service level. As you said, technology is evolving very quickly. Things are moving forward. There are services that we provide now that we didn't provide in the past. So we are currently establishing a pricing strategy that will allow us to say, okay, these are the standard services that were created when we were created, and then there are other services, augmented services, new services, which cost extra. And there are extra charges per service. That's part of our approach. Now, the other important thing that is confirming that we're on the right path is the fact that we're aware that we have reduced the per unit cost for each service. What we have to look at is our partners' consumption of those services. We need to track that. And it's our responsibility at Shared Services Canada to provide that information about service consumption to each of our partners. So we can look at the services that they're using and not provide services that are frivolous or that don't serve their needs, because we want to at least be able to recover costs for the services that we're providing. No, I'd be very happy to talk about that more.
We're on limited time, so I'm just going to ask some pointed factual questions and hopefully get straight answers on the dates on which you're going to deliver your goals. One email system for all 500,000 inboxes. When will that be done?
We do not have a precise date.
When will you have a date for it?
Pardon me?
When will you have a date?
Mr. Chair, we will have a revised date when the vendor provides a revised migration plan.
Okay. So you added 47,000 emails onto the new system last year by my calculation, because according to this report, on a year ago today, there were 3,000 mailboxes on the new system, and you now say there are 57,000. That means there's been 47,000 added in the last year. At that rate, we will take more than 10 years to put them all in one system. So is your plan to have it done by 2026?
Mr. Chair, there are strong incentives for the vendor to accomplish the migration as quickly as possible. The vendor gets paid by email box that's created and transferred. So
who is the vendor?
It's a combination, Mr. Chair, of Bell Canada, CGI, and those are the core vendors.
When was the contract signed with?
The contract was signed in 2013. 2013.
Okay. Did Service Canada include any penalties for delays in?
Mr. Chair, there are service credits that accrue in the event of delays.
Consolidation of data centers from 43 to 7. When will that be done?
This is, Mr. Chair, this is a question that we're...
Sorry, 485 to 7.
Right.
When will that be done?
Mr. Chair, this is a question that we're looking at carefully in the context of the revised plan. I do not have a precise date for the completion of the data center migration at this time. All of these measures or issues are a balance between the scope of the projects, the amount of time to take for the projects, and the funding of the projects.
So you're now, but according to the report, you're at 436. 436, at least at the time of this publication. What is the number of data centers you have right now?
Mr. Chair, altogether about 80 or so data centers, old data centers, have been closed.
That's
over
from
the
485, so you're now around 405. Sorry, 405 is roughly where you're at right now.
I would just like to clarify, these are not all data centers. Some of them are closets that have servers in them. So I know the report says data centers. I would refer to them as server locations. So there is a distinction, because in one case we're closing down very large, expensive facilities. In other cases, we're simply taking a server from a room and putting it in our in-state data center.
Is that distinctive from servers? Because we have those marked separately in Mr. Parker's remarks, where he says there are 23,000 servers that need to be consolidated. Are you distinguishing between them and the data centers?
No, it's a combination. That's why this gets a little complicated for simple answers.
Well, I guess the challenge for us in measuring success is we don't know what we're measuring.
Mr. Chair, if I may, this industry that we're in actually lends itself very well to measurement and being very precise. Once you understand everything you're dealing with, our dilemma is, and again, I have to say, this is very typical from the industry, when you come into this kind of situation, there often isn't a baseline. So the organization spent 2 years learning what it had, 2 years developing a plan. Because of the dynamic nature of the IT industry, it's actually very common to come in 2 to 3 years into it and say, okay, the world's changed again, we need to revise our plan. That's the point that we're at right now.
If there is a way then to measure success, then why aren't we measuring it?
We are, Mr. Chair, absolutely.
But but none of the president stated his goals. One email system for all 500,000 inboxes, 7 data centers instead of 405, and consolidating the 23,000 servers, that would then seem to be his definition of success, doing all of those things. But you're telling me now that those are not, that would not properly measure success.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre.
So could we, how are we as a committee supposed to judge whether you're succeeding if we don't know what your goals are?
Mr. Glowacki or Mr. Parker.
Mr. Chair, our goals are outlined very clearly in the report on plans and priorities for 16-17. We've established the process of establishing metrics by which you can measure us. In terms of the progress of the transformation plan, as I said, we're in the midst of updating that plan, and we will have the metrics that go with that plan in the fall of this year.
Thank you very much. We'll move back to the Liberal side. Mr. Harvey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, in the respect of time, I've just got a few quick questions, and I totally ask these with the utmost respect. We've talked a lot about timelines, and some of my other colleagues have asked. I have a few quick questions. Number one, do you think that there's a possibility that you could provide us with an updated overall timeline for the implementation of the entire original mandate? So if you were to say today, what we originally agreed that we were going to do, we're going to try to have done by, that's question number one.
That's a question that we're examining in the context of the updating of the transformation plan and the balance and trade-offs between the scope of the projects, their budget, and the time. Okay. So this is an interplay across all of those three variables, and I think that's pretty normal.
Okay. So with that being said, on page 8, second paragraph says, in updating our plan, we recognize some legacy infrastructure will remain operational longer than we originally anticipated. We will therefore continue to reinforce this legacy infrastructure to prevent outages and the delivery of service to Canadians. So do you guys have an anticipated extra cost that it's going to incur to maintain that extra infrastructure that you hadn't originally planned on over the life of the project?
Mr. Chair, we're in the midst of putting together our budget plan for the coming year. Our plan will include those specific estimates, and I'd be happy to make those available when we have the specifics available.
Okay. Third and final question. With respect to the industry, I understand that IT is a sector that changes very, very rapidly, and I understand that things are fluid, and that leads to some of the problems that we've talked about here today. With that having been said, and given the fact that we're way behind on our original timeline to start with, do you think that there's a distinct possibility that if we maintain the trajectory that we're currently on, that we might not ever catch up?
Mr. Chair, again, this is a combination of, do you change the scope, do you change the funding, or do you change the time? So all of those three elements will come into play. So it's difficult, I hesitate to speculate about which of those elements will change in the updated plan until we have an updated plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harvey, and we'll go to Ms. Shanahan.
Thank you very much, Chair. There's no question that this is a huge problem, that there's been trouble in paradise. But we want you to succeed, Mr. Parker, we really do. So can you talk to me about the people in your department? What are the qualifications of the employees, staff, permanent staff, temporary contract, outside providers? Just paint us a picture of how your department works and how it moves through this incredibly complex project.
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to provide that background. The vast majority of our staff are technical experts in the CS category, which is the computer sciences category in the government. There's a wide variety of skill sets. They are ranging from data centers to telephony to networks, They bring a wealth of experience and skills to the job every day. There's also obviously a group of internal services staff who support us well through this period, financial, among others. In terms of the overall, I'll say, mix, my view is we have extremely good staff. We've inherited staff from the various departments when we were formed, including large blocks of staff that just move holus bolus. And you can see this particularly in the procurement area and some of the data centers areas as well. But it is a challenge from 43 different departments. They come with different cultures, different experiences, different ways of operating, and this has been one of the challenges we faced, to get everyone on the same page, moving in the same direction with the same process, the same understanding of how to work. And that's a large part of what we need to do to get the service management nailed down, everybody understanding the processes, how to work together, how to talk to clients, how to relate to clients. And in that regard, one of the changes that was recently brought was we've stood up account teams who are charged with specifically talking to the clients, engaging in planning with the clients, and service delivery managers who have the responsibility of delivering to the clients, organizing the services that are required to deliver what the clients need.
Mr. Parker and Ms. Shannon. We'll go to Mr. Christofferson.
Very good. Thank you, Chair. Before I move on to a new subject, I'd like to afford the Auditor General an opportunity to give any concerns or comments he might have around the draft plan and when it was going to be submitted. And I've been around long enough to suspect he shared some concerns around an open-ended words like to be approved. Just an opportunity for you, Mr. Ferguson, to comment on what you've heard as to whether it meets your standards.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think, in actual fact, there are a number of different plans in the whole conversation. I think, the concern about the comments in Treasury Board's opening statement, I think, are valid concerns. That, the opening statement implied that the plan was going to be complete by the end of March, but then there was going to be some other approval process, which we've heard today will be an approval by the Secretary and is expected to be done by June. So I think that's something that the committee should, as you mentioned earlier on, specifically look for. There's also the new transformation plan, I think, that Shared Services has mentioned will be completed later on in the fall, and I think that's also something that that the committee should be seized with and interested in seeing when that's completed.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Moving on to another matter that's been raised, I'd just like to follow up. It's the business of the projected savings being removed from the budget before the savings were actually in place. 3-year plan, you had a baseline of $128 million. You were projecting to save $72 million a year. In a 3-year plan, the plan was delayed by at least a year, and yet you went ahead and took out the $56 million out of the fiscal 2015-16 year. Number one, I'd like to know why you did that before you'd actually achieved the savings. And secondly, what are the implications and collateral damage of having removed that money before you should have?
Mr. Chair, we've Shared Services Canada always understood there would be a challenge and risks around capturing savings before they'd actually materialized. And it does pose a challenge in terms of the email transformation, for example. $50 million was taken from the reference levels of Shared Services Canada at the beginning of this fiscal year, and those savings the $50 million have not been realized, will only be realized once the migrations occur. Mr. Chair, the department was asked to provide cumulative savings, and that was what the rationale for
Okay, so it was outside pressure coming on you to find this money, and even though it made absolutely no common sense to take the money out before you'd realized the savings, you went ahead and did it anyway because you were pretty much ordered to find the money. Am I getting it right?
Mr. Chair, I was not in the department at the time, so I was not party to the conversation.
What about you, Mr. Glowell? Sorry.
No, sir, I was not here at that time.
Isn't that interesting? Nobody's here that was there at the time of the robbery. Yeah. I still haven't heard a good... I asked Treasury Board then, why the hell did they allow them to do it? Or were they the ones that put pressure on them to find the money? We all know what this was. This was about getting ready for the election, making sure there was a balanced budget. They were holding up money. They've done it everywhere that we've seen in government. This is just another example of that. Tell me otherwise.
I have no comment, Chair. Unfortunately, I wasn't in Treasury Board at the time.
Oh, isn't that sweet? Every one of them. I wasn't there. It's not my fault. Well, Chair, you know, they run the risk that we can still go back and find those that were there, and maybe that's something we ought to consider, because we have that power. But this kind of stuff is not acceptable to hear on crucial questions. Oh, I wasn't there. You go to the next one. I wasn't there. And then I wasn't there. Not good enough. And that was one of the reasons why we made deputy ministers accounting officers, so that they couldn't do that. But I have to tell you, Chair, this stinks to high heaven. It makes no sense in terms of governance issues, removing that money before the money was saved. I'll give a pass to shared services. At least they're not trying to say it was an okay idea, because it wasn't. It sounds like they got pressure from on high. I'm not hearing an answer from on high as to why they sent that through. So at the end of the day, we've still got an unanswered question here as to why money was taken out of a budget before it should have been. And nobody can answer. Not acceptable.
All right, thank you, Mr. Christofferson. Mr. Area, please.
Mr. Parker, you mentioned the capacity of the industry to meet our requirement varies. Did we do the mistake due to ideological reasons that we depended on the industry for everything from designing to implementation? Our public service employees have good background experience and knowledge. There's a lot of corporate knowledge in there. Maybe we did not use it at all. Or even then, we did not try to build upon that corporate knowledge so that we'll have the advantage of having that corporate knowledge over a long period of time. That was one of the major problems?
Mr. Chair, as Mr. Glowacki noted, we have what I'd say is a very hybrid model between the provision of services by private sector companies and from within Shared Services Canada. Our sourcing strategy is to look at this type of issue on a case-by-case basis to assess the business case for provision of the services from within the department or the provision of services from private sector vendors.
But is it not true that bulk of the thing has been done by Bell, CGI and others?
In terms of the email system, the requirements for the system were developed by public servants in collaboration with the private industry. Security requirements are determined by the Government of Canada. And, but more broadly, in terms of the services that we're providing, you have networks, the fiber that's run, you have the telephones, and it's very much in those areas where you see private sector involvement.
If I give you just a brief answer, the core of the transformation plan was developed by public servants. It was augmented occasionally by industry, but those people are actually still in our organization.
Then Mr. Parker mentioned the staff are worth their weight in gold, but why there's high turnover in Shared Services Canada?
Again, this is something, if I may, Mr. Chair, this is typical in this situation. The organization is 4 years old. These people, and I have to tell you, I spent 2014 as an advisor to this organization. I refer to it as the longest tour of undercover boss on record, because I got to see what people were like with their bosses not in the room and what they were doing. And my view is the country needs to understand how dedicated and hardworking these people were. Before I knew I was going to be a part of the leadership here, I got to see what these folks were doing, and they have been working amazingly hard for a long time. The turnover is coming because we're reaching burnout in a number of cases, and that's something that as leaders we have to manage. It's also a typical cycle where the next team has to come in, pick up the mantle, and run with it.
Finally, just on turnover, we've got a suite of data that compares our turnover to the broader public service. And I believe the most recent data is for 13-14. At that time, our turnover was somewhat less than the public service average. So I think based on the evidence to date, we've got pretty typical turnover thus far.
And when my colleagues was asking, like, how can we measure your performance, you said that the things are changing, that type of industry. Of course, it is always changing. Even when you come out with a plan, by the time that thing gets ready, the technology may advance further. Maybe one day it will be secure enough that we may have to use the cloud services. But that does not stop you from giving us specific things against which we can measure your success.
I agree, Mr. Chair. That's exactly where we want to be. And please don't take away that we don't have measures now. The problem is this is very large, it's very complex, it takes time to get the right systems into place. We inherited a hodgepodge of systems, and now what we're trying to do is move toward a world-class industrial set of systems and processes so we can produce those reports not only for special events like this, but on a monthly basis by which we would manage.
Stepping back, you mentioned that the staff, the public service employees were involved, but when asked when we'll have the completion, Mr. Parker replied that the vendor will provide the date. And you also mentioned the strong incentives are there for the vendors. It is dependent on number of emails, based on the emails. But what after that?
Mr. Chair, in the contracts, for example, there are service level targets that are embedded in the contracts. So they have, the vendors have incentives to perform, and we require them to perform as per the contracts that we've established.
Thank you very much. Just as a quick question, prerogative of the chair here, are there any other countries in the world, any other jurisdictions? Madam Murray has already talked about British Columbia doing something similar, but are there any other, countries that have gone from all these silos to one, the same type of project that we're looking at here?
There are examples of other countries, perhaps not on the scale that Canada is attempting, but there's also examples at the state level in the United States where this type of exercise or project has been launched.
So were there any of the strategies, any of the plans, did we take best practices from there? So, I mean, you have looked at those jurisdictions and you've said these are the best practices, but like you say, the scope of this may well be one of the largest in the world. Is that right?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chair. On a governmental basis, this is absolutely one of the largest in the world. I can tell you from my personal experience, if you take a look at the size of the public service being approximately 300,000, I personally won and stood up and led a managed service engagement of 275,000 users. So this has been done in industry more than it's been done in government, but there are plenty of examples that are very similar. State of Texas, state of Georgia. The UK and Australia have taken different approaches, but trying to do very similar outcomes.
Did any of those countries have the timeline? Like, did any of them have the frustrations that we are sharing in there? Okay, so
this is very typical, absolutely.
All right, thank you. We'll move back to Monsieur Gaudin.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Earlier, we were talking about the staff who works with you. I think it's important to mention their work. And also to say that we are all users of technology, and if things don't work, we do have some power to pressure them or to ask for help. So I'd like to thank your staff. Earlier, the Auditor General said that there is that you had actually made little progress. So is it too late to change our strategic plan? Mr. Chair, first of all, I'd like to say that it's essential to have a single enterprise level service. That's really essential for the government. In terms of changing our plan or making adjustments, you know, whether we should delay one project in order to move another project forward, well, this is something that we've been considering. And we will certainly be dealing with that type of question when we're looking at the plan to be written this fall. So we are listening to everyone's opinion. We're listening to our clients. We're listening to experts. And we are making adjustments as necessary. I understand that between now and the fall of 2016, we won't have any concrete progress. Now, a more concrete question. The department wants to offer a single email services, a smaller number of data centers, which would be available 24/7, 365 days a year. It involves 43 departments, 485 data centers. So, now, can you tell us, where are our strengths and weaknesses? Where are we lagging? Where are we ahead of schedule compared to the initial plan? Well, Mr. Chair, we are lagging in terms of delivering the new email system. It was supposed to be completed in March of 2015. So as we've just discussed, we don't have a specific date for completion for that project. Now, in terms of the data centers, I think we could say that we are at least 18 months behind schedule in terms of the data centers. When it comes to the consolidation of networks, we are about 6 months to 9 months behind. So I see that we're lagging everywhere. Well, for those 3 projects, yes, they are behind schedule. John?
Points of progress. Being able to deliver end-user devices, for instance, to client organizations, BlackBerries, for instance, used to be very problematic. It would actually take, in some cases, up to 2 months from the time a person ordered it to actually receive it. We now have a service level established of 5 days, and we are meeting that. Maybe in terms of schedule, things have certainly moved to the right, but now, I think I struck a chord.
For a month.
Sorry, sir, we don't support Parliament. But in terms of cost savings and efficiencies, we can say that in the 4 years since we've been in existence, the cost of a gigabyte of storage, unit costs are very important in managing and demonstrating performance. And we have over 50% savings compared to what it did at the inception of SSC. 20% savings in mainframe costs. So the efficiencies are unfolding. Our ability to present those to an auditor based on audit standards may not exist yet, but it doesn't mean we're not making the progress. The rest of that will unfold. That's part of the plan that's being revised.
Thank you very much. Mr. Christofferson, please.
Very good. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate that. I want to return back to this $56 million. I'm not at all satisfied that this has been adequately accounted for in terms of what took place. Clearly, I can't get an answer as to why the decision was made because of previous responses. But I didn't hear even an attempt to give me an answer to my question of what was the collateral damage, the unintended consequences of artificially cutting a budget that wasn't adequately replaced through savings. What damage has that done?
Mr. President, it has meant that we've had to reprioritize, invest less in different projects, And I think the data shows that to the largest extent, it's contributed to a slower rollout of the transformation initiatives themselves. It's one of the reasons why there are delays. The investment in the transformation plan has not been as large as initially forecast.
Yeah. So this is interesting. This is where we get into the bump up between the political and the bureaucratic. I didn't hear anybody here take ownership of that decision. If anything, I heard people saying, "Go somewhere else down the line to find an answer." And we'll have to decide how we're going to wrestle with that as we're pulling together our report, because it looks like it was an artificial pressure from outside governance and management, and enough that the Auditor General has made a pretty big deal of it in his report. And now we're finding out that some of the delays that we're dealing with is a direct result of that money being taken out. I mean, it's a big deal. And it's not that complicated. The fact is, there was a 3-year plan to save $72 million. The first year was delayed, and yet they went ahead and took all the money out in 1 year. And now we're hearing from shared services the damage that did. I can't get an answer out of Treasury Board, because that's likely where the pressure came. I would be very shocked if it was a bureaucrat that ordered them to take that money out. So it would be an interesting pursuit of the separation between the bureaucratic and the political, were we to go down that rabbit hole. But clearly, I think I can see the politics. What I want to do is come back to the Auditor General on this, sir. Again, on page 22, Exhibit 4.2, you've gone very much out of your way to explain this issue, to make sure that it's highlighted and that we understand. Can you please just give us your further thoughts and comments, not only about how this was a mistake, but would you tell us how this should have been properly handled and accounted for?
Please.
Thank you. Thank you. We felt it was an important case study for everyone to understand what happened. There was the plan to reduce the cost of providing the email services. The plan was to produce $56 million worth of savings. And the fact that the $56 million was taken out of the budget before the transformation was completed, that was exactly the issue we wanted to put in front of Parliament, because we knew that it would have an impact on the organization. Taking out the $56 million before the savings are generated meant the organization would have to react to that in some other ways, and I think we've just heard that in the organization's opinion, the result has been delays in all of the other projects. So, we have presented it simply as illustrative so that people can understand the importance of making sure that the budget is following, what is actually happening rather than the other way around. Because when budgets are reduced before activities have been completed that should produce those savings, it's going to have a sort of fallout effect on other parts of an organization, and I think we've heard that today.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. We'll now move to Mr. Lefebvre.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chez moi, on a un petit dicton.
In my area, people often say, well, how do you eat an elephant? One mouthful at a time. I have the impression that you're trying to eat the elephant whole. So, for taxpayers, it's concerning to see that you have a budget of $2 billion per year. So over 5 years, that's a lot. You've been using all of this money without a strategic plan in place. It's very concerning for the taxpayers. So my question is for Mr. Messina.
Which you answered to, was he still, is it the same one that was there last year?
Sorry, I didn't catch the question.
Sorry, is the deputy minister that you report to?
Yes.
Is it the same one that was
Yes,
there last year?
Yes, the Secretary of the Treasury Board.
Secretary of the Treasury. What is his name or her name?
It's Yaprak.
Thank you. I'll just go to the shared services, Mr. Parker or Mr. Glowacki. In the recommendations put forward by the Auditor General, they said that you would you refine your methodologies and practices for determining savings to support an update to the transformation plan. Right? So basically, you guys are refining. Can you provide us with a specific what you will be refining?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. I'm going to ask Madame Fillon to talk to that question. It's her area of expertise.
Merci.
Thank you. So, Mr. Chair, how will we ensure that the next transformation plan will generate savings? Well, we will do so by implementing the strategic plan. But what we've also seen since the creation is that we have interdependence with our partners. So we need to get information about their service costs, and we need to be able to manage the services that we offer them. So that's basically what the strategic plan will deal with. It's going to focus on client services, and clients will be at the heart of this transformation plan. Everything we do will be geared towards ensuring that we give them the services they need and managing the service costs and maintenance costs. Okay, so if I've understood correctly, are you going to take into consideration the implementation costs for your clients as well? We're going to gather all of that information together about those costs, but it is not our responsibility to manage or to implement processes within departments. That would be too ambitious. But we do recognize the importance of gathering together all of these costs for all departments. So when we're dealing with such a large area and we have a lot of inventory,
Controls. I'm just worried because I'm seeing everything else. I know it wasn't really part of the Auditor General's report. However, that's something that comes to my mind, saying inventory, and it changes on a daily basis. And sometimes if you don't have a proper control of it, it can get out of hand pretty quickly.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Oui, absolument. On est en train de développer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we are indeed developing a plan, which is part of our strategic investment plan. The challenge at creation was to determine the information about the 43 departments, all of their assets, their inventory, and so on. And that is going to help us deal with the asset replacement plan. So we need to look at how we're going to renew the assets, how we're going to maintain them at a proper level, and how we're going to manage the inventory and the assets.
En fait, ma question
Once again, my question is directed to the Treasury Board. Talking about the plan, which we hope to be approved by June, the strategic plan, will you be able to meet the deadline of 2020 to ensure the completion of this transformation and the migration towards shared services? I think that's what we're really concerned about. Yes, we know that there have been delays, although, as Mr. Glowacki said, there has been some progress made. We can already see some of that progress. So my question is, can we expect this transformation to be fully completed in 2020 as originally planned?
In response to that, I just want to differentiate again. It's important to understand the difference between the IT strategic plan and the transformation plan that Mr. Parker was referring to. So in terms of the IT strategic plan, it's setting directions in terms of the way we want to go. We're dependent, and we believe that's the proper way to go. We're dependent on the transformation plan that Mr. Parker was alluding to, which is being revised and revisited, and we'll look to that in the fall timeframe. So until we see that,
it wouldn't be appropriate to make any commitments on the dates.
They have to be somewhat connected?
Yes, they have to be. Again, ours is very much directional, so that's the way we want to go. We want to ensure they get support from departments and agencies and understanding that, and then we'll work with them closely in terms of in the fall time
Thank
frame
you.
looking at the transformation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha. Mr. Polyev.
The $56 million in savings that were figured into the 2015-16 budget, they were planned in and laid out in what document, Mr. Parker?
Mm.
Oui. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Which document?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
D'une soumission.
It's part of a Treasury Board submission.
Yes, by whom?
By
Whose
SSC.
submission?
SSC submission.
SSC submitted that.
When we present.
In 2013, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this was not a cutback that was initiated by the political level. It was a submission from the organization in question 2 years ago. 2 years ago.
We prepared.
Sorry, 3 years ago.
On avait préparé une soumission.
We prepared a submission for the Treasury Board, prepared by Shared Services, where we presented a business case.
Presented by Shared Services Canada in 2013, not a sudden decision made in 2015.
Absolument.
Right. So it was previously planned, previously laid out by Shared Services Canada, not suddenly implemented by Treasury Board or some political actor.
Par contre, dans la soumission.
That was my question, though. My question is clearly that whether or not this was a decision made based on a business case presented by Shared Services Canada. Now, it is true, the government could have decided to provide an extra $56 million in order to reward SSC for failing to meet its deadline. But if we had done that, imagine the moral hazard, as economists call it. You send the signal out to the entire government of Canada. If you miss your deadlines and as a result go over budget, don't worry, you still get your $56 million. That would be exactly the wrong way to go. And I can't imagine that we as a parliamentary committee, which is supposed to protect the public purse, would take the position that government agencies and bodies should be rewarded with extra money when they miss their timelines. Because that ultimately would have been what we would have done if we had injected that extra $56 million. Now, if I can point out, this was not a decision by a political actor suddenly in 2015-16 to cut the budget by $56 million. This was simply implementing the plan that Shared Services Canada came to Treasury Board with in its own submission 3 years earlier. So my question then to Shared Services, if anyone wants to explain this, is when you made the submission and you said in your submission that you would save $56 million, did you mean it?
When we prepared the business case and we prepared the DB submission, on avait clairement articulé un business case.
We had clearly laid out a business case that would generate savings for ongoing costs.
The migration. Now we know we're 2 years delay, but the savings were delivered before.
But you made the commitment. You made the commitment to do it in the 15-16 year.
And it's 50, not 56. The other $6 million is
but
about
you made
the software.
your organization made that commitment to do that in the 15-16 year.
According to the business case, that was the plan to complete the initiative by March 2015.
Exactly. So your organization, I think this idea that organizations can come forward and put forward financial plans for approval at Treasury Board, which is ultimately voted on by Parliament in the estimates, that they can, when they fail, they can come forward and say, oh, geez, it's really not our fault that we broke our commitments. The problem is that you didn't give us more money than we asked for. When you make a business, when you put forward a business case and you say you're going to save the money, It's your organization's job to save that money. It is not the job of the political level of government to reach into the taxpayer's pocket and find you an extra $56 million to meet the mandate that you failed to meet.
Mr. Parker.
Mr. Chair,
Parker,
just
please.
to clarify, in regard to the earlier member's comment, we cannot speculate about whether or not there was anything other than the business case behind this $50 million reduction. In response to the other member's comment about taking responsibility for the miss in savings, the department is taking responsibility for the miss in savings. It has reprioritized as required to stay within the approved parliamentary, the levels of funding approved by Parliament.
Good. I mean, and that's good, because the last thing we want is to signal to government agencies that if they fail to meet the financial commitments that they put in their own business cases, that Mr. and Mrs. Taxpayer are going to just come to the rescue. In the real world, that's not how it works. I mean, you go into the business world and you say, oh, I'm sorry I missed the deadlines that I committed to in a contract, and I'm going to cost an extra $56 million. Can you throw me? Can you spare that extra change? You'd be laughed out of business.
Thank you.
So I think that the government did exactly the right thing in insisting that the fiscal plan presented in the business plan be honored.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. Ms. Shanahan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I don't know in what world that plans actually are actual results. That's the whole purpose of budgeting and having a plan, and then having a follow-up and an assessment, and to compare with actual results, and then make decisions accordingly. So that's where I want to go, is going forward, what is your internal evaluation process? What does that look like? I think we had a little taste of it there earlier, but I would like to understand it more in conjunction. And I'm not a big deadline person. I'm a results person. I want to see this work.
In terms of the internal governance, there's many aspects to the internal governance. We have a senior management board that reviews all of the business plans, all of the projects on a regular basis. We have procurement review boards. We have project review boards that all feed up into the senior management. We also have our internal audit function that is launching what we're calling systems under development, real-time audits to help guide us through this, so that we're not looking through the rearview mirror as much as you would in a normal audit. So they will be working with the teams and reporting to me on what they're finding in terms of accomplishments of goals or areas of risk that we need to deal with. The audit team also is also supplemented by the Departmental Audit and Evaluation Committee that receives the regular audit reports, and with whom we share all of the ongoing affairs of the department and seek their advice on the transformation projects, other areas that have been audited as well. So moreover, we have for major projects, the Treasury Board reviews all of the major IT projects that we're running on a regular frequency, and there's a regular annual report that we provide to Treasury Board as well on the transformation plan. So there's up through all of the various levels, there's quite a system of governance and review.
If I could add very quickly, we changed the organization structure strategically 1 year ago, April. And we are now very much organized like a business, where we have service lines where all the costs, all the interdependencies, everything rolls into one specific person. So we have a single point of accountability that didn't exist before 1 year ago. When you have that, and then it rolls into the governance Ron was talking about, things don't fall through the cracks as they did before. We have a much better picture than we did previously.
Okay, so that's encouraging to hear. But now, every once in a while things do fall through the cracks. So now I'd like to hear from Mr. Messina. What will the Treasury Board be doing to more than just review? We're counting on your department to keep an eye on this and ask those hard questions, because otherwise it ends up in Mr. Ferguson's camp.
Yeah, so Mr. Parker touched on a couple of things. I think, first of all, as I mentioned previously, having the IT strategic plan in place will really help Shared Services Canada in terms of its mandate and all departments understanding what it is we're trying to accomplish with them, and there'll be a lot of collaboration as a result of that. The second point, as Mr. Parker highlighted, we do provide oversight, and it will be on those major transformation initiatives, and we will. Our oversight it is more than oversight in the sense that the teams participate on the governance committees. So we will see if there are any issues, we'll address them right away because they'll be escalated through the governance committees. So I think the other thing I would add is we are working quite closely with Shared Services Canada on the revised transformation plan to ensure that we're also comfortable with the implementation of that, which is a much more proactive situation as opposed to reacting when there are issues.
Thank you very much. According to the clock on the wall, our time is up. I want to thank you for being here today, but I also want to make this fairly clear that we as a committee, I think, would like to see these plans. The Treasury Board needs to complete its IT strategic plan by the 31st of March. And I don't know if there's any need to send it to us until it's approved, because I want to, as a committee, we want to receive this thing in June. All right? So as soon as that thing is approved, can you send us the plan approved? And now to shared services, this fall, I think there's kind of a timeline for you in regards to the transformation plan. And I may have these plan names wrong, but there are certain benchmarks that we expect, and we're going to follow up on this. I would be quite, and I'm speaking without the full committee meeting on this, but you can pretty well expect a call back here. You can pretty well expect within 8-9 months to be called back here, and yes, you've given us your plan on time. Yes, we received the transformation plan on time, but how is it going now? And so we have appreciated this, and I know how complex this is, and when you have complexities like this, there are problems, but we expect, and the taxpayers expect, and Parliament expects, that we will see goals laid out that are achievable, that you've met them, and we know what the ultimate goal may be, but we want to see some achievable goals on the way to that. So thank you very much for being here today, all of you. Give our best wishes to the Secretary. Yeah.
If I may, could we have a date for the fall?
Like they will hear
October
from us.
31st?
Yeah, it will be probably November-ish, I think.
Be wonderful if we could have it.
Okay, well, we will get back to you. Just to the Secretariat of the Treasury Board, please, on our behalf, wish a speedy recovery to her, and thank you very much for being here. We are adjourned.